To reprise an earlier thought experiment where I asked you to budget our short movie, we're going to look at a crew position on set called craft services. Their responsibility is to provide the sustenance and hydration for the crew throughout this long shooting day that isn't supplied by catering. Because we have such extensive hours between meals, we need protein, water, sugar, all those things that keep people energized and ready to shoot. And craft services is there to serve all the crafts with this sustenance throughout the day. Here's a craft service vehicle. This van, pretty fancy. This is pretty upscale. They're parked right behind a Gripen electric truck, and they're probably setting up a table like this where people can go not far from the set to get quick cup of coffee, some orange juice, rolls. It looks like a breakfast setup here. As is this setup in the parking lot. Looks like they just got set up because it's pretty clean. Notice that there's cable underneath, stingers supplying power to probably some of the toaster and some of the coffee makers and everything under the tent here. Craft service setup like this is a pretty good craft service setup, and these tables aren't far from the set. This parking lot is probably not far from the set because you're supposed to be able to walk from the set to craft services if you need a quick snack. I always tell people if you're shopping for craft services, which have to be served throughout the day because you're there before the crew arrives because they have to have something when they get there, and you're there as they wrap the shoot at the end of the day because they have to have energy throughout the whole time. So you're there early and you're there probably towards the end, last to leave, except for locations, because you have to clean up everything that you've provided people here. So there's a lot of trash. So you have to be there early and late, long hours. And I always tell people when you go shopping, you need to provide what crew members desire to keep them going. Of course, fruit, always big. You got to have your bananas, apples, oranges, cherries, whatever. And you also need a good supply of something salty because working the long hours in the hot sun, you're going to lose salt with the sweat. So there's always salted nuts are big, salted almonds, things like that. And then are the quick bursts of energy people are going to get it when they run from the set. They might want a candy bar, or they might want a chocolate kiss or something to quickly give them some energy. So there's always the sugar items. You got the sugar, the salt, the fruit, and of course you've got protein, things like jerky, quick protein hits, and then there's starch, which is that major supply of sustaining you throughout the day. So there will be all sorts of starchy items like your usual donuts and bagels and everything. But you can see here we got the chips, which good if you don't have salted nuts. Here is a nice quick array of stuff on a table not far from the set. I can see the nuts, the fruit, the chips, and there will always be something to drink too. There will always be lots of water. There will be fruit drinks. There'll be coffee. Hydration is very important on the set. This is, as you can see, not far from the set. It's just across the street. So you have to be within a quick walking distance from people working on the set because they have to have a quick pick-me-up. They can't walk a far distance. Here, of course, this is right next to the truck. Looks like they're cleaning up here, but I just want to show you an example. In the bin here, the drink array, you'll have your juices, your cranberry juice, your energy drinks will all be in a place near the water. Here's an early morning setup. You can tell because you got the bagels on one end and you got your donuts on the other end. The woman behind the table is your craft service PA or your craft service person who is going to make sure that everybody is satisfied. So there might be a special request and they might need something extra. So this person would go back to the craft service truck. Here we have a craft service bus. In the bus, truck, van, there are all the items that would help you make food that you can't make at the table. It's got its own generator, and that means you can cook your own coffee up, you can fry an egg, you can make a sandwich, you can make smoothies. Throughout the shoot, when there's a break in the action for stars or other people in the crew, they'll take a longer walk to the craft service truck where they can make their own sandwich or create their own smoothie or brew their special tea by walking in the craft service truck and asking the person to help them do it themselves. And it's a very convivial place. If you want to meet a lot of people in the movie, offer to be part of the craft service department, because everybody at one time or another will go by the craft service truck and get a quick sugar item or a drink or some special thing that's not on the table, and or just get in the shade and chat. It's like anybody in any food service environment. It's always a nice relaxing place. Here's a gentleman in the craft service van preparing some trays to be handed out during the shoot, because as the shoot goes on in the day, usually a bit after lunch, when people are pushing and the energy's lagging, the craft service people, the PAs, will go out with trays like waiters, handing out snacks like this here. This is like an hors d'oeuvre tray. This is a meat and cheese tray. They'll go throughout the crew who are busily working hard, so they don't have time to go to the table or the van, and they'll just walk through the crew offering them a quick snack here, like this snack here. You have this little salsa or carrot, or my, I think a classic example here, you got your fruit and you got your wonderful sugar-laced starch. And this is more balanced here, but this is a good example. These are just all the type of trays that might circulate through the crew towards the late afternoon, probably a little bit before dinner. And speaking of which, dinner's usually served 6 hours after the lunch break, but sometimes you're going on your 12th hour and you're about ready to wrap, and so you don't want to have a big dinner and be charged by the caterer for that. So craft services then supplies a kind of a nice bonus. They'll make something more than an hors d'oeuvre or a snack. They might make chicken wings, or they might make small burgers or hot dogs, like a minor barbecue, so that you have a good healthy snack before you leave the set. Because craft services is responsible for providing or creating most of the trash on the set, they are tasked with cleaning up the set. Here you can see a typical craft service trash bin. Is it filled with bottles, empty plastic bottles for water and coffee cups. I think the primary item you find around the set that's always left behind that people forget about are bottles of water. And there are all sorts of rules. When you get on a set, you're supposed to take a Sharpie and put your initials on the bottle of water, because if you don't, the habit gets formed where you take a couple sips, you put your bottle of water down, then you run to your next task, and then the next, and so you got 5 bottles of water with only one sip taken out of the bottle, and then they're wasted and they're lost. And so they make you mark your own initials on so you can keep going back to the same bottle. It also helps you clean up your own mess. But it doesn't matter. Any set I've ever been on, there's all sorts of water bottles in odd places, in nooks and under tables and near C-stands, and craft services has to clean all that up, because they're the people who handed out those items. One of the other responsibilities that's a little strange but makes sense is when you have animals on a set and they're wrangled, or they have animal wranglers taking care of the horses and the dogs and other animals, but usually those animals on sets will create their own mess and their own leaving. So craft services, because they are supposed to clean up the trash on set, are also given the responsibility for cleaning up whatever a horse, dog leaves behind. And you'll see them serving your food and also cleaning up the street like this. And sometimes it gives you a little hesitation when you go to the craft service table, but it's a time-honored tradition of what they got to do for cleanup. One thing to remember is that craft services isn't catering. Like, this is catering here. This is under catering tent. We see the catering van where that gentleman is leaning in the window. These people are about ready to set up lunch. The catering tent is taken care of by the caterer, who also allows the extras to sit there before they get on set. In that van, they prepare the meal, usually 6 hours after the call time, and then 6 hours after that if we continue shooting 14 hours. And they're also there at the beginning of the shoot to supply what we call an NDB breakfast. And this is what we call a non-deductible breakfast, which means that these people here have come to set and they can get their breakfast, their French toast, their eggs, and they can eat it. And that time isn't deducted from the time that they work on the movie. Unlike lunch, when you take your lunch, you get 30 minutes, and that time is deducted from the hours you put in the day. So we call it an NDB, non-deductible breakfast. and here they're enjoying that. Here, at the end of the big meal, usually people come in and they got 30 minutes to eat, but we only clock it from the last person through the line. So if it takes 15, 20 minutes to get to the line, then it's going to be 45, 50 minutes for eating. And here we have the caterer who's going to clean up their own mess, not craft services. And one of the joys of catering or crafting any movie is that you have strange places to put your items. Here we have enchiladas in the snow. So the caterers have an extra responsibility keeping everything warm. You can see that they're trying to keep the coffee warm in that container there. But wherever the crew is, you have to get that stuff out to them. They can't come to you if they're on the side of a mountain. So you might end up on the side of the mountain with them.